This is People of the State of Michigan versus Jacqueline Conley, docket number 20-881FH. And Mr. Conley, would you raise your right hand, please? Do you solemnly swear or affirm the testimony you're about to give in this matter will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
Yes, ma'am.
Thank you. Mr. Conley, you can put your hand down. You have the right to be represented by an attorney. You are represented by Mr. Austin. Mr. Austin, which count or counts is he pleading to?
Your Honor, it's going to be count 2, the felonious assault. It will be count 3, the domestic violence. Count 6, unlawful use of a motor vehicle. Count 7, larceny, 200 to 1,000.
And without the habitual or with?
Without.
Okay. Then will you waive reading of the balance of the information?
We will so waive.
Mr. Pfeiffer, would you read the counts he's pleading to then?
Yes, Your Honor. In the name of the people of the state of Michigan, the prosecuting attorney for this county appears before the court and informs the court that on 4/17/2020 at 4003 Burnway Drive, the defendant for count 2 did make an assault upon Jaleesa Long with a dangerous weapon, to wit, a knife, but without intending to commit the crime of murder or to inflict great bodily harm less than the crime of murder, contrary to MCL 750.82. This is a felony with a maximum punishment up to 4 years and or $2,000, DNA to be taken upon arrest, and a consecutive sentence may be imposed under MCL 750.506A if the assault was committed in a place of confinement. For count 3, the defendant did make an assault or an assault and battery upon Jaleesa Long, an individual with whom he had a dating relationship, contrary to MCL 750.812. This is a misdemeanor with a maximum punishment of up to 93 days and or $500. A consecutive sentence may be imposed under MCL 750.506A if the assault was committed in a place of confinement. For count 6, the defendant did, without authority and without intent to steal, take, or use, or was a party to such unauthorized taking or using of a motor vehicle, to wit, a car, belonging to another, to wit, Jaleesa Long, contrary to MCL 750.414. This is a high court misdemeanor with a maximum punishment up to 2 years and or $1,500. And the Secretary of State shall suspend the driver's license in accordance with MCL 257.319. And then for count 7, the defendant did commit the offense of larceny by stealing a cell phone and a video game system that belonged to Jaleesa Long. The value of the property stolen was $200 or more, but less than $1,000. This is contrary to MCL 750.3564A. This is a misdemeanor with a maximum punishment of up to 1 year and or $2,000, or 3 times the value of the property stolen, whichever is greater. To impose a fine of 3 times the value, the defendant must admit the amount or must be determined by the trier of fact at a trial. And this is against the peace and dignity of the state of Michigan.
Mr. Conley, you're being charged here with felonious assault. That is a felony punishable by up to 4 years in prison. Domestic assault and battery, a misdemeanor punishable by up to 93 days in jail. Unlawful use of an automobile, it's called a high court misdemeanor, but it's punishable like a felony, up to 2 years in prison. And larceny, $200 to $1,000, a misdemeanor punishable by up to 1 year in jail. Have you had enough time to talk? Oh, and also, if you were on parole at the time of the felony, it's a mandatory consecutive sentence. Have you had enough time to talk about these charges with your attorney?
Yes, ma'am.
Do you understand the charges?
Yes, ma'am.
Do you have any questions about what we're doing?
No, ma'am.
How do you want to plead, Mr. Conley?
Guilty.
If your plea of guilty is accepted by this court, it means you won't have a trial of any kind, and you'll be giving up the rights that go along with a trial. I'm going to go through those with you. You'll give up your right to a trial by jury, or if you didn't want trial by jury, trial by judge. You'll give up your right to be presumed innocent until proven guilty, and to require the prosecutor to prove your guilt beyond a reasonable doubt. You'll give up your right to have the witnesses against you appear at the trial and to be able to cross-examine them, as well as your right to have this court order any witnesses that you might have to appear at the trial. You'll give up your right to remain silent at the trial and not to have your silence used against you, or if you wanted to testify at the trial. There's also some things that are different about appeals when you plead guilty. The first one is that you don't get an automatic right to have the next higher court hear your case. Instead, you'd have to ask them to take a look at it. They would have to agree. And the other thing is that there are many issues you simply cannot appeal when you plead guilty. That's different than people who go to trial. If they get convicted, they can appeal pretty much everything. Do you understand your rights, Mr. Conley?
Yes, ma'am.
Also, if I accept your plea, it means you can't come back later on and try to say that the plea was the result of some promise or threat that no one told me about today. Do you understand that?
Yes, ma'am.
It also means you cannot come back later on and try to say that it really wasn't your own choice to plead guilty today. Do you understand that?
Yes, ma'am.
Is there a plea agreement, Mr. Pfeiffer?
Yes, there is, Your Honor. The agreement is that the defendant would plead to counts 2, 3, 6, and 7. In exchange, the people would dismiss counts 1, 4, 5, and the habitual second, and that there was an agreement to a 23 fixed.
So a Killebrew agreement to a fixed minimum sentence of 23, did you say?
Yes, Your Honor.
Okay. And Mr. Austin, is that a full and complete statement?
It is, Your Honor. I'll just note one thing for the benefit of Mr. Conley. The Killebrew agreement did slightly improve since I discussed it with him. I told him it was going to be 24 and it's now actually 23.
Okay. So Mr. Conley, did you get all that? And is that your understanding of the agreement also?
Yes, ma'am.
Do you agree with it?
Yes, ma'am.
Now, this sentence agreement that they made means that the low end of your sentence on the felony would be fixed at 23 months. And if I thought for some reason, I doubt it, but if I thought that you should have more time than that, I would be required to tell you, and I'd give you a chance to take back your plea and start all over if you wanted to. You got all that?
Yes, ma'am.
Has anyone promised you anything else that hasn't been said here right now in order to get you to plead guilty?
No, ma'am.
Anyone used any threats to get you to do it?
No, ma'am.
Is this your own choice?
Yes, ma'am.
And are you pleading guilty because you believe you are in fact guilty of these offenses?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, so this is on or about April 17 of 2020, and let's start with the felonious assault. What did you do to Jaleesa Long?
I grabbed a knife and ordered her to sit down.
Okay, so when you ordered her to sit down, were you holding the knife in your hand?
Yes, ma'am.
And that would make you were doing it in a way that a reasonable person would fear that you maybe would use the knife on them?
Yes.
Okay, and this was like what kind of a knife?
Kitchen knife.
Okay, but you could do some harm to someone with it if you wanted to, correct?
Yes, ma'am.
All right. Now, had you and Jaleesa been having an argument during all of this?
Yes.
Okay, so the domestic assault and battery, did you make some physical assault on her?
I pushed her.
You pushed her? And was she like a girlfriend?
Yeah, she was my fiance and she was
Okay.
pregnant.
And you pushed her on purpose?
Yes.
All right. Did you then maybe take her car? Is that what happened?
Yes.
All right. Did she give you any permission to take her car?
No, ma'am.
And did you actually drive it away?
Yes.
All right. And then something about her cell phone and video game system. What happened with that?
I took her phone when I left the house.
Did you take a video game system too that belonged to her?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. Did she give you any permission to take those?
No, ma'am.
And so were you stealing them from her? Maybe not permanently, but you were taking them away without permission, at least temporarily.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. And would they be valued at least $200? The phone and
Yes.
video game, yeah. Okay, and did all of this happen on Burnway Drive in Lansing, Ingham County?
Yes, ma'am.
Has the court complied with MCR 6.302, Mr. Pfeiffer?
I believe we were missing the date, unless I.
No, I covered the date.
Oh, then yes, it has, Your Honor. My apologies.
Mr. Austin?
Court has, Your Honor.
Are you aware of any promises, threats, or inducements other than those already placed on the record, Mr. Pfeiffer?
I am not, Your Honor.
Mr. Austin?
No, Your Honor.
The court finds the plea is understandingly and voluntarily made without undue influence, threats, or promises of leniency. It is an accurate plea. It's supported by the testimony. The plea is accepted. This is the earliest sentencing date I can give you. I have Monday, August 16th at 3 o'clock, if that works for you, Mr. Austin.
It will, Your Honor.
Okay, Mr. Conley, I would like to be able to do the sentencing the same way we did this plea remotely. Is that okay with you?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, thank you very much. Then that will be on August 16th at 3 o'clock. And then, Mr. Conley, someone will interview you between now and then. It's for the report that I'll use for sentencing, so you should just be aware that that's coming. Do you have any questions before we go?
No, ma'am.
All right, then you can tell them there that you are all set. You're done with your hearing.
Okay. Thank you. You have a nice day.
Thank you very much. You as well.